Okay, in part 2 of chapter 25, we're going to be looking at generators and alternating current and how we make power. So, a generator converts mechanical energy into electrical energy. So, you thrust the magnet into the coil of wire, it produces electricity. That would make it an electrical generator. So, when we were playing with Faraday's law, we were creating electricity that qualified as generation. So most generators operate on the principle of electromagnetic induction. And so we just have to have a magnet moving toward or in a coil of wire, and we get current and voltage. Now, we also sometimes, if we just keep the magnetic field stationary, we can rotate the loop. So, you can think of a generator. You've got magnets, north, south, north, south. And then you've got a coil of wire, and you rotate the coil of wire, and you're going to get electricity, right? So you can keep the magnets stationary and make the coil do the work. So anyway, that's one of the ways to generate electricity. So here is in general what a generator often looks like. So yeah, we've got a magnet. So we've got a north end and a south end. And we've got some mechanical input, which could be, as I said, steam. It could be water. It could be air. So you have something that is going to make this rotate. And it could be a hand. It could be squirrels. And then what happens is that we get electricity out. So we get current and voltage. So input mechanical energy, output electrical energy, and that's a generator. Now, how does this occur? Well, remember when we talked about how charged particles that move through a magnetic field experience a force. So that's part of this also. So here we've got these charged particles, and what's happening is that we're moving the coil of wire, which has electrons in it, through the magnetic field. So we move the coil. Well, that means those electrons are being forced to go through the coil, through the magnetic field, and so they start to experience a force that pushes them down the wire. Okay, so this goes back to that other principle about forces on charged particles. So that creates a current. And so that's how we get current, okay? That force, that push on the charged particles. Now, it's easy to make an alternating current, as I was showing you, just by thrusting the magnet in and out. Then the meter goes left, right, left, right, left, right, and we get current that is actually reversing direction as we move the magnet in and out. So as we rotate the coil, then what happens is that we get current that changes from a positive to a negative value. Sometimes it's 0, okay? But we get this beautiful alternating current and voltage. So something has to rotate. You've got brushes that pick it up. And if you want to turn it, and so what happens is that you naturally make current, right? Oops. So a turbine is a bladed, the fan blades. So except in this case, it's what the wind would catch for a wind generator, or you could have steam push on it or water, but that is going to make it rotate, right? So you've got steam or something coming through. And so that provides the mechanical energy, kinetic energy, and that makes the armature rotate. The armature is the wire coil, and it's usually wrapped around a soft iron core. And so that rotates and produces electricity. Okay, so turbines and armatures. And here's a teacher. This is one of the devices we have at College of DuPage, is this cool old horseshoe magnets. And then the teacher's rotating this handle, and that's rotating some coils. And then you get lovely electricity. Now, you may have noticed that both generators and motors use the same equipment. There's always a magnet and a coil. And if you add motion, then you get out electricity. So that's a generator. But for a motor, remember we also had a magnetic field with a coil, and we put electricity through that coil, and then it made it move in the magnetic field, and so we got motion out. So they use the same equipment, magnets, coils, but their input and output is different. So the input is, if it's motion, their output is electricity. If your input is electricity, your output is motion, and that makes a motor, right? So generators and motors have the same equipment, but they have different inputs and different outputs. Opposite inputs and outputs. Now, once upon a time, the United States was trying to decide in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, which kind of electricity we would have. Would it be alternating current or direct current? And this was called the War of the Currents. Now, the guy who was DC, direct current, that was Thomas Alva Edison. You've probably heard of him, very famous. He is sort of the inventor of the phonograph. He didn't really invent the motion picture camera, but he bought the rights to them. He did produce the best light bulb, okay? And the thing is, he was a person who had developed the direct current generator and direct current motor, and he had the patents for those. So he was interested in wiring up the city for direct current. And so when you look at this picture, what you're seeing is all the electrical lines that he was wiring up New York with. And the problem was that the power plants had to be very close to your house. So you had one like every mile. And the wire ran to your house and back to the power plant with full current. That's one reason you had to be close to the power plant, because if the wires went too far, then you would lose huge amounts of energy through heat loss, because the wires would heat up with all that current flowing through them. So you had to have power plants every other mile. He thought that was fine. And you had all these wires because they would run to your house and back to the power plant. It was a real mess. And some got knocked down during the Great Blizzard of 1888 and killed somebody. Anyway, so who was he fighting against? Well, Nikola Tesla was the AC guy. Now, it didn't quite start up that way. It started with Nikola. He had come over from Europe, and he was working for Edison. And Edison said, if you figure out what's wrong with my DC motor, if you can make it work better, then I will give you $10,000 bonus. So Tesla worked really hard, and he was being brilliant. He figured out what was wrong with the DC motors, and he fixed it, and then he went for his bonus, and Edison said, ha, 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 just a joke. You don't get anything. So Tesla quit, and he went off and dug ditches for a while, and while he finished up his plans for the AC generator and the AC motor. Now, Tesla wasn't so interested in money as Edison was. Edison was perfectly happy just selling power to rich people. But Tesla wanted to sell to make sure electricity was cheap enough so everybody could have electricity. And so the war on current started. And I'm afraid that Edison's friends and he played some dirty tricks where they there was a circus elephant that had run amok and killed some people, so it needed to be killed. And so Edison persuaded the owners to kill the elephant with alternating current to show people that it was dangerous because you could kill an elephant with it. Also at this time, governors of states were persuaded that, hey, the best way to kill humans was with alternating current. And that's where the electric chair came in. Part of the war on currents, trying to show that alternating current, which runs at high voltages, is dangerous, too dangerous. So anyway, so how did we end up with alternating current? How did Tesla win over Edison? Well, part of what happened was right here in Chicago. Tesla had started wiring up, I believe, the city of Aurora, the city of light. But then we had this amazing World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. It's also called the Columbian Exposition because it's supposed to be 400 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So they missed by a year. Anyway, but what happened was that they lit up this incredible World's Fair. All these beautiful buildings were built to be mostly temporary. That's how World's Fairs worked in those days. Kind of like the Olympics do now. You know, they build all these arenas and stuff. These buildings were built and things were shown. People would build ones for their country and come in and show off all their stuff from the different countries. So people came from all over the world. People came from all over the United States and Canada to visit this World's Fair. And it was incredible. Chicago put on this most fantastic show that is believed to be the best World's Fair ever. And this is down in South Chicago. And you can still see some of the canals today. There were these canals, and John Philip Sousa, the great band leader, rode around with his band. And it was amazing. And if you've ever been to the Museum of Science and Industry, well, that was one of the buildings from the fair. It's the only one pretty much that survived because it was the Palace of Fine Arts, and it was built of beautiful marble and very fireproof. Most of the other buildings burned down after the fair was over. But anyway, the Palace of Fine Arts became the Museum of Science and Industry. Anyway, so, how did Tesla win? Well, what Tesla did was he brought electricity to the fair. He lit the whole place up with brilliant lights, and everybody was very safe, and nobody died from the electricity. So
Tesla, get her, get her, Tesla,
so
get her.
Tesla the cat. Shoot. Oh, Chris, go away. So anyway, where was I? Oh, so anyway, so everybody was shown that alternating current worked great, and that it was very pretty safe. And so anyway, so that fair helped launch Tesla as the winner of the war on currents. Okay, so anyway, so nowadays to make electricity, what do we need? We need a source of motion. So it could be water turbine, right, inside a dam. It could be here's Hoover Dam. This shows the size of the turbine. Here's a person down here. It could be steam generator, a finer blade. Now the steam, of course, is created from, unfortunately, burning coal or natural gas. So often it's made from fossil fuels. But we did talk about how you can use steam generator when you're using light also, right? So there's concentrated solar power also is another way to get steam. Or you can use a nuclear power plant, which does not use fossil fuels, to create steam. And there's your turbine in there. And that water is not radioactive. And we have more nuclear power plants in this state than any other state. And anyway, so we're going to go on and talk about another reason that Tesla won the war on currents. So we're going to talk about that in part 3.